The sea was alive with fury that night. Each wave rose higher than the last, slamming against the hull of the black ship like fists of the deep. Rain fell in thick sheets, mixing with the salt spray until the deck gleamed slick and treacherous. The air stank of iron, wood rot, and the coppery tang of old blood that no storm could wash away. The ship groaned beneath the weight of the storm as though protesting the path it had been forced to take, a path no sane sailor would ever dare. Captain Varon stood at the helm, cloak whipping in the wind, his gloved hand gripping the wheel so tightly that the leather strained. His face was carved from stone, lit intermittently by flashes of lightning that exposed eyes black as the ocean itself. To his crew, he was unshakable, fearless, relentless. But deep within, he felt the cold pressure of something far greater than fear pressing on his chest. It wasn't the storm that terrified him. It was the silence between the thunder, when the sea seemed to hold its breath. The compass on the wheelhouse table spun wildly, the needle a frantic blur. It hadn't found north for hours. The map, an ancient parchment inked with symbols no one but Varon could read, fluttered uselessly. Still, he kept the ship aimed toward the horizon, where a dark, jagged outline rose like a wound against the night sky. That was their destination, the Isle of the Drowned King. Legends said no ship that sailed there ever returned. But legends were only warnings for those who lacked conviction, or so Varon had told himself when they first set course. Behind him, his crew whispered prayers between gritted teeth. Sailors of all nations and crimes, they were men hardened by storms and bloodshed, but tonight they trembled like children. Some muttered the names of sea gods, others clutched talismans, nails biting into their palms. Every man aboard felt it, the invisible pull of something vast and ancient waiting beneath the waves. A voice broke the tension. "Captain," rasped Arlen, the first mate, his face half lit by the lantern he carried. "The men are asking if we should turn back." Varon didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed ahead, through the sheets of rain and fog. "Tell them the black ship does not turn back," he said finally, his tone calm but cold as the wind. Arlen hesitated. "Aye, sir," he muttered and vanished below deck, leaving the captain alone with the storm. It was then that the humming began. At first, it was faint, just a vibration beneath the soles of his boots, like the sea itself was murmuring. But then it grew, rising in pitch and power until it was more felt than heard, thrumming through the masts, the sails, the very bones of the ship. Varon frowned, looking down at the deck. The lanterns flickered, their light dimming to a ghostly blue. "Storm song," one of the deckhands whispered, voice shaking. "Means the sea's about to take us." "Silence," Varon snapped, though his own heart beat faster. Then, as lightning tore through the clouds, he saw her. She stood at the bow, slender, motionless, her white gown drenched but untouched by the wind. Her hair, pale as frost, clung to her shoulders. Her eyes, those eyes, glowed faintly, reflecting the lightning like two pieces of moonlight trapped in water. Varon froze. He had seen that face before. The first time was 3 years ago, on the night his old ship, the Vagrant Tide, had gone down in a storm off the Reaver's coast. He had been the only survivor, found drifting in the wreckage. Just before the ship had broken apart, he had seen her standing in the waves, watching him as if deciding whether he was worth saving. Now, she was here again. "You've come too far," she said softly. The storm's roar should have swallowed her words, but somehow they reached him clear as a whisper beside his ear. Varon gritted his teeth. "Too far to turn back." The woman's lips curved into a sad smile. "Then the sea will remember your choice." And just like that, she vanished. The air snapped colder. The humming deepened, resonating through the deck like a pulse. Suddenly, a scream cut through the storm, a raw, human sound that sliced through the wind. Varon spun toward it. A crewman near the starboard rail was gone. All that remained was a pile of soaked clothes, still smoking faintly as though seared by fire. Burned into the wooden planks beside them was the mark of a hand, elongated, skeletal, and glowing faintly blue. Panic erupted. Men scrambled across the deck, shouting prayers and curses alike. Someone tried to light another lantern, but the flame wouldn't catch. Another man swore he saw faces moving beneath the waves, pale and twisted, watching. Varon's voice cut through the chaos. "Back to your stations." But even as he shouted, he saw movement in the mist off the bow, a massive shape rising and falling with the waves, its outline too steady to be a wave itself. For a fleeting moment, lightning revealed it, a fortress carved into the cliffs of an island, its towers shaped like the ribs of some colossal beast. The Isle of the Drowned King. They had arrived. The humming stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving a hollow silence heavier than any storm. Varen looked out over the sea, and for the first time in his life, he wondered if the woman had been right. Because when he turned his eyes back toward the deck, he saw the water bubbling up through the cracks between the planks, black, viscous, and alive. It spread like veins of ink beneath his boots, crawling toward the helm. Below deck, the air was thick with damp and dread. The storm above rattled the timbers, but even the roar of the wind could not drown the strange humming that pulsed from the ship's hold. It was deeper now, rhythmic, almost like the sound of a giant's heartbeat. The flickering torchlight threw long, shivering shadows across the walls, and every step seemed to echo back with a sound that did not quite match the footsteps. First Mate Arlen led the way, his boots splashing through puddles of seawater that had seeped in through the deck. Two men followed close behind, Bren and Hollis, each gripping their torches like weapons. They were the bravest of the crew, but even they avoided looking too long at the chained crates stacked against the bulkheads. There were 6 of them, made of black iron and sealed with melted lead, each engraved with runes that seemed to writhe under the light. No one knew exactly what was inside. The captain had loaded them in secret weeks ago at the port of Trask, forbidding anyone to ask questions. Cargo for the drowned king, he had said. Nothing more. But now those crates were singing. Bren swallowed hard. It's louder than before, he muttered. Like something trying to talk. Shut it, Arlen snapped, though his own voice trembled. He approached the nearest crate, pressing his palm against the cold iron. A vibration ran through his bones, a pulse, faint but alive. Captain said we're to keep them locked. Nothing opens, nothing touches the seal. The humming shifted, softening into something that almost resembled words. It wasn't any language Arlen knew, but it whispered his name, Arlen, like a memory from childhood, warm and familiar. He stepped back, torch shaking. Did you hear that? Hollis whispered. His face had gone pale. It knows you. Before Arlen could reply, one of the locks snapped open with a sharp metallic crack. The men froze. The torchlight sputtered as cold air hissed from the gap. A low groan filled the hold, like the ship itself was mourning. Bren, hold that light steady, Arlen barked. But Bren wasn't listening. He was staring at the lock, eyes wide. I didn't touch it, he whispered. I swear, I didn't. The second lock broke loose. Then the third. One by one, the chains unraveled, falling to the floor with heavy thuds. The humming became a wail, vibrating through the beams and the floorboards, rattling the lanterns hanging above. Captain Varen, Arlen shouted, though he knew his voice would never reach the deck through the storm. The lid of the crate shuddered. Then it burst open. A cloud of steam, cold and silver, erupted into the air, making the torches flicker out. The men stumbled back, choking. Out of the mist, something moved, slow, deliberate, and impossibly tall. A skeletal hand, blackened and dripping seawater, grasped the edge of the crate. Its fingers were long and thin, wrapped in tattered ropes of seaweed. A head followed, its face hidden beneath the torn remains of a sailor's shroud. The creature's body was formed of bone and rot, covered in barnacles that pulsed faintly with pale light. Bren dropped his torch and screamed. Hollis drew his knife, but the blade looked pitiful in his shaking hand. The creature turned its head, and 2 burning eyes opened in the dark, red as molten embers, yet cold as the sea. When it spoke, the sound wasn't from its mouth but from inside their skulls. Return what was taken, or drown with the debt. Arlen stumbled backward, clutching his ears. The words echoed in his mind, flooding him with images, a battle at sea, a ship sinking beneath black water, souls screaming as they were chained and dragged below. He saw Captain Varen standing on the deck, making a pact with something vast and unseen beneath the waves. The black ship had not been cursed by chance. It had been bought. Bren bolted for the stairs, but the creature's hand shot out with inhuman speed, gripping his wrist. The flesh sizzled, steam rising from his skin. Bren's scream was cut short as his body went limp, collapsing into a pile of ash and salt. Arlen and Hollis ran, stumbling over the shifting floor as the ship tilted violently. The hold flooded with the stench of brine and death. Behind them, more of the iron crates began to rattle, locks snapping open, lids creaking as shadows clawed their way free. Above deck, chaos had already begun. The black ship heaved as though struck by something massive from below. Sailors clung to the rails, shouting in terror as the sea around them turned black and thick as tar. The rain no longer felt like water, it stung, cold and oily. Varen emerged from the cabin, sword drawn, eyes blazing. What in the depths is happening? he shouted. "The hold, sir, it's opened," cried a sailor. "Something's loose." Before Varen could respond, the ship lurched again, throwing him to the deck. From the sea rose enormous shadows, shapes that looked like drowned men walking on water, their eyes burning red like those in the hold. The crew watched in horror as the ocean around them began to glow faintly with ghostly light. Then, through the veil of mist, they saw it. A ship, identical to the black ship, emerged silently from the fog. Its sails were torn, its hull cracked, but it moved effortlessly, gliding over the waves as though untouched by the storm. On its deck stood men who looked exactly like them, each crewman mirrored by a dead reflection. Varen stared, frozen. He saw himself on the other ship, standing tall at the helm, eyes hollow, face pale as bone. "What is that?" whispered Arlen, crawling back onto the deck, drenched and trembling. Varen's voice was low. "It's us," he said. "It's what we've become." The ghostly vessel drew closer, its timbers groaning, until the two ships were almost side by side. No wind moved, no waves broke between them, only silence, and the sound of the humming, now louder than ever, coming from both ships in perfect unison. The men of the black ship fell to their knees, unable to breathe. Above them, the sky opened with a single flash of white lightning that illuminated both crews, living and dead, locked perfect reflection. In